The roar of twin turbofan engines cut through morning silence as Major Claire Donovan banked her A-10 Thunderbolt II over the jagged mountain peaks. At 35,000 feet, the world below looked deceptively peaceful, rolling valleys carved between granite ridges that had witnessed countless battles throughout history. Claire adjusted her flight path, scanning the horizon through her cockpit canopy. She had no idea that within minutes, a single radio transmission would force her to confront the ghosts of her family's past and test everything she believed about honor, duty, and forgiveness. Before we dive into Claire's story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Now, let's join Major Donovan as she begins what will become the most challenging mission of her career. Major Claire Donovan gripped the stick of her A-10 Thunderbolt II and pulled into a gentle climb. The morning sun painted the mountain peaks below in shades of gold and orange. She'd flown this patrol route dozens of times, but the view never got old. Thunder 17, this is Mountain Base. How's it looking up there? The radio crackled in her headset. Mountain Base, Thunder 17. All quiet on the Western Front. Visibility's perfect today. Claire checked her instruments. Fuel good. Systems green. Another routine morning in what the brass called a stable region. She banked left over Razor Ridge, a jagged line of peaks that looked like broken teeth. The valleys between them held morning shadows that would burn off in another hour. Claire had memorized every peak, every canyon, every possible landing strip in this sector. Knowledge like that kept pilots alive. Her radio came alive with static, then a voice she didn't recognize. Any station, this is Recon 7. We are taking heavy fire and need immediate air support. Grid coordinates follow. Claire's training kicked in. She reached for her tactical display and started plotting the coordinates as they came through. Recon 7, this is Thunder 17. I copy your position. What's your situation down there? Thunder 17, thank God. We've got approximately 20 enemy fighters with heavy weapons. They've got us pinned in a canyon about 2 clicks north of Hill 394. We can't move, and they're closing in. Claire pulled up the area on her display. Hill 394 was rough country, all steep slopes and narrow valleys. Perfect place for an ambush. Bad place to be trapped. Copy that, Recon 7. How many souls do you have? 6 men, Thunder 17. We've got 1 wounded, but he can move. We need extraction or we need you to clear us a path out of here. Claire pushed her throttles forward. The twin engines behind her roared louder as she dropped altitude and turned toward the coordinates. The peaceful morning had just become a lot more interesting. Recon 7, what's your unit designation? We're 1st Reconnaissance, attached to 4th Brigade. Team leader is Lieutenant Mitchell, call sign Hawk 2. Roger, Hawk 2. I'm inbound to your position. ETA 4 minutes. Can you mark your location with smoke? Negative on the smoke, Thunder 17. Too much enemy fire. But we're in the canyon bottom, about 50 meters from a dried creek bed. Big boulder pile on our north side. Claire scanned ahead as the mountains grew larger in her windscreen. She could see the canyon system now, a maze of deep cuts in the rock. Finding 6 men down there would be like finding ants in a crack. Hawk 2, I need you to pop a flare when I tell you. Just for a second, so I can get a fix on your position. Copy that. We've got green flares ready. Claire dropped to 8,000 feet and started her approach. The canyon walls rose up on both sides, gray stone streaked with red. She could see muzzle flashes now, tiny sparkles of light against the dark rock. Recon 7, I've got visual on enemy positions. Stand by for flare. Thunder 17, be advised we've been monitoring enemy radio traffic. They're expecting reinforcements within the hour. That changed things. Claire needed to work fast. Hawk 2, pop your flare now. A green star burst in the canyon bottom, bright against the shadow. Claire spotted the team immediately, 6 tiny figures pressed against a rock wall. Enemy positions dotted the canyon rim above them like deadly flowers. I see you, Recon 7. Keep your heads down. I'm coming in hot. Claire armed her weapon systems and began her attack run. The 30mm cannon under her nose would make short work of those enemy positions. But something nagged at her as she lined up her first target. Mitchell. That name sounded familiar, though she couldn't place it. Probably just another young officer she'd heard about in briefings. She pushed the thought away and focused on the target in her crosshairs. Claire lined up her first target and squeezed the trigger. The GAU-8 cannon roared to life, sending a stream of 30mm rounds into an enemy machine gun nest. Rock and dust exploded from the canyon rim. Good hits, Thunder 17, came the voice from below. That's one down. She pulled up and banked for another pass, scanning for more targets. The enemy fighters were well positioned, using the canyon walls for cover. This would take precision work. Recon 7, I count at least 15 enemy positions. This is going to take some time. Can you give me a better read on your team leader? Thunder 17, our team leader is Lieutenant James Mitchell, son of Lieutenant General Harrison. Claire's hand froze on the stick. The A-10 wobbled slightly as the words hit her like a physical blow. Harrison. The name she'd tried to forget for 12 years crashed through her mind. Lieutenant General Robert Harrison, the man who'd destroyed her father's career with a single decision. The man who'd called Colonel Michael Donovan a disgrace to the uniform and stripped him of his command. Thunder 17, are you still there? The voice from the canyon sounded worried. Claire forced herself to focus. Copy, Recon 7. Still here. Making another attack run. But her hands were shaking now. She pulled into a wide circle, buying time to think. Below her, 6 soldiers were trapped and dying. One of them was Harrison's son. The memories came flooding back. She was 15 years old, sitting in the base housing kitchen when her father came home that day. His face was gray, his shoulders slumped. He'd set his cover on the table and looked at her mother. It's over, Sarah. Harrison's court-martial panel found me guilty on all counts. Her mother had gasped. Mike, what are you talking about? The supply convoy incident. They're saying I falsified reports to cover up the losses. 22 good soldiers died because of intelligence failures, and they need someone to blame. Claire remembered hiding in the hallway, listening as her father's voice broke. I followed orders, Sarah. I did exactly what Harrison told me to do. But when it went bad, he threw me under the bus. Said I acted without authorization. The court-martial had been quick and brutal. Colonel Michael Donovan, 23 years of distinguished service, stripped of rank and dishonorably discharged. The official record called him a liar who'd covered up his own mistakes. The truth died in a closed hearing room. Her father never recovered. He tried civilian jobs, but the discharge followed him everywhere. He started drinking. 2 years later, he was dead from a heart attack at 51. Her mother always said it wasn't his heart that killed him. It was the shame. Thunder 17, we're taking heavy fire down here. Can you engage those positions on the south rim? The voice snapped Claire back to the present. She looked down at the canyon where Harrison's son was trapped. The son of the man who'd murdered her father's honor. Part of her wanted to turn away. Call it mechanical problems. Let someone else handle this mission. Harrison had shown no mercy to the Donovan family. Why should she risk her life for his son? But even as the thought formed, she knew she couldn't do it. 6 soldiers were counting on her. 6 Americans who'd sworn the same oath she had. Whatever crimes the father had committed, the son was just another soldier in trouble. Copy, Recon 7. Engaging South Rim targets now. She rolled into a steep dive, lining up on a cluster of enemy fighters. The cannon thundered again, chewing through rock and flesh. She pulled up hard, the G-forces pressing her into her seat. Thunder 17, that was beautiful. You got 3 of them. The voice on the radio was young, maybe 25. About the same age she'd been when her father died. This Lieutenant Mitchell probably didn't even know what his father had done. Probably grew up thinking the old man was a hero. Recon 7, what's your ammunition status? We're down to our last magazines, Thunder 17. Maybe 10 minutes of firing time left. Claire checked her own weapons. Plenty of 30mm rounds, but she was burning fuel fast with these attack runs. The canyon walls made everything harder, forcing her into steep angles that ate up gas. Copy. I'm going to work the north rim now. Stay low and keep your heads down. As she banked for another attack run, Claire caught sight of her father's picture tucked into the corner of her instrument panel. He wore his dress blues in the photo, taken just before his final deployment. Before Harrison destroyed him. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered into her oxygen mask. But this is what honor looks like. She pushed the nose down and dove toward the enemy positions, finger tight on the trigger. Claire dove toward the north rim, her finger steady on the trigger. The 30mm cannon erupted in controlled bursts, sending deadly streams into the enemy positions. Rock chips and dust clouds marked each hit. Thunder 17, you're tearing them up. Lieutenant Mitchell's voice crackled through her headset. We can see them pulling back from the rim. She pulled up hard, feeling the G-forces push her deep into her seat. The A-10 climbed away from the canyon walls, and she banked for another pass. Through her canopy, she could see the enemy fighters scrambling for new positions. Recon 7, how's your wounded man? Sergeant Lopez took shrapnel in the leg, but he's mobile. We're more worried about ammunition. Down to maybe 5 magazines total. Claire checked her fuel gauge. Still good for another 20 minutes of combat, but the canyon walls were forcing her into fuel-hungry attack profiles. Every dive and climb cost her precious gas. Copy that. I'm going to try to open up your eastern exit route. See that gap between the big rocks? Roger, we see it. But there's at least 6 enemy positions covering that gap. Not for long. Claire rolled into her steepest dive yet, almost vertical as she plunged toward the canyon floor. The altimeter spun downward, 5,000 feet, 4,000, 3,000. The canyon walls rushed past her wingtips, close enough to touch. At the last second, she pulled up and opened fire. The cannon rounds walked across the eastern positions like deadly footsteps. Bodies tumbled from behind rocks. Others dove for cover. Outstanding, Thunder 17. That whole section is clear now. But as Claire climbed away, she heard something that made her blood run cold. The distant sound of helicopter rotors, still far off but getting closer. Recon 7, do you hear that? Affirmative. Sounds like 2, maybe 3 aircraft inbound from the west. Claire climbed higher and scanned the horizon. There, black dots against the morning sky. 3 helicopters loaded with reinforcements, just like the ground team had warned. Hawk 2, those birds are going to be here in less than 10 minutes. We need to get you out of that canyon now. Thunder 17, we can make it to the eastern gap you cleared, but we'll be exposed crossing the open ground. Can you cover us? Claire looked down at the terrain. The gap led to a steep slope covered with loose rocks and scraggly bushes. No cover for 200 yards. If the enemy got reorganized, they'd cut the team to pieces. Recon 7, hold position. I need to thin out these bad guys before you move. She dove again, this time targeting a cluster of fighters on the south rim. The cannon thundered, spitting fire and death. But return fire sparkled from multiple positions. Green tracers reached up toward her like deadly fingers. Something pinged against her left wing. Then another impact, harder this time. Her master caution light flickered on. Thunder 17, you're taking hits. Mitchell's voice was urgent. Pull up, pull up. Claire checked her systems. Hydraulic pressure dropping on the left side, but still within limits. The A-10 was built to take punishment, and this was nothing she couldn't handle. I'm good, Recon 7. Just a few dings. Making another pass. But the enemy was learning. They were coordinating their fire now, multiple guns tracking her movements. As she lined up her next target, tracers erupted from 3 different positions at once. This time the impacts were solid hits. Her left engine fire warning light came on, and she felt the aircraft shudder. Black smoke trailed from her wing. Engine fire, left side, she said into her radio, more to herself than to the ground team. She pulled the fire suppression handle and the warning light went out. The left engine kept running, but rough now. Thunder 17, are you okay up there? Still flying, Recon 7. But this is getting interesting. The helicopters were closer now, maybe 5 minutes out. She could make out their shapes, military birds loaded with troops. Once they landed, the 6-man reconnaissance team wouldn't stand a chance. Claire made a decision. She armed her rockets, 2 pods of 2.75-inch Hydra 70s mounted under her wings. She'd been saving them, but this was the time to use everything she had. Recon 7, I'm going to hit the western approach with rockets, try to discourage those birds from landing. When I do, you make your move for the gap. Don't stop for anything. Copy, Thunder 17. We'll be ready. She banked wide, setting up for a rocket run on the flat area where the helicopters would want to land. The enemy fighters were still shooting at her, but she ignored them. This was about stopping those reinforcements. The helicopters were bigger now, close enough that she could see their door gunners. They'd spotted her too, changing course slightly to avoid her attack run. Recon 7, get ready to move. This is going to be loud. Claire dove toward the landing zone, rocket pods aligned. At 800 yards, she squeezed the trigger. Rockets streaked away from her wings like angry hornets, trailing white smoke trails. The first salvo hit the landing zone and erupted in a line of explosions. Rock and dirt geysered into the air. The lead helicopter banked hard left, aborting its approach. Now, Recon 7. Move, move, move. Through her side window, Claire could see 6 tiny figures breaking from cover, running for the eastern gap. They moved fast despite their wounded man, bounding from rock to rock. But the helicopters weren't giving up. They were circling wide, looking for another place to land. And down in the canyon, the surviving enemy fighters were repositioning, trying to get shots at the escaping Americans. Claire's left engine was running rougher now, vibrating the whole aircraft. Her fuel was getting low, and she still had enemy fighters shooting at her from multiple positions. Worse yet, she could see the helicopters setting down on a ridge 2,000 yards west of the canyon. Troops were already spilling out, at least 30 men with heavy weapons. The situation had just gone from bad to worse. Claire watched the enemy troops spread out across the ridge, moving fast toward the canyon. 30 men with machine guns and mortars. The 6 Americans wouldn't make it halfway up the slope before those reinforcements caught them. Thunder 17, we've got contact. Mitchell's voice cut through the radio static. Enemy troops moving down from the west ridge. We need cover now. She could see muzzle flashes winking along the ridge line. The fresh troops were already engaging, their bullets kicking up dirt around the escaping reconnaissance team. Copy, Recon 7. Engaging the ridge. Claire rolled into a diving attack, ignoring the tracers still reaching up from the canyon rim positions. Her damaged left engine coughed and sputtered, but held together. She lined up on the enemy troops and opened fire. The 30mm cannon raked across the ridge, sending bodies tumbling down the rocky slope. But there were too many of them, spread too wide. For every fighter she dropped, 2 more kept shooting. Thunder 17, Sergeant Lopez is hit again. Mitchell's voice was tight with stress. We're pinned down behind some boulders about 50 yards from the gap. Claire pulled up from her attack run and looked down. She could see the team now, 6 tiny figures crouched behind a pile of rocks. Enemy fire was converging on their position from 3 directions, the canyon rim above, the western ridge, and now from a new group moving up from the south. Her fuel gauge showed 15 minutes left, maybe less with the damaged engine burning fuel unevenly. She armed her last pod of rockets. Recon 7, I'm going to hit the southern group with rockets. When I do, you push for the gap. Don't wait, just run. Roger, Thunder 17. We're ready. Claire banked toward the southern approach where a dozen enemy fighters were setting up a machine gun position. This was her last rocket pod. She had to make it count. At 600 yards, she fired. Four rockets streaked downward, their exhaust trails white against the dark stone. The explosions tore through the machine gun crew and scattered the supporting infantry. Move now, she called. The 6 Americans broke cover, half carrying their wounded sergeant between them. They bounded up the rocky slope toward the gap, but enemy fire followed them like a deadly spotlight. From her position above, Claire could see it wouldn't be enough. More enemy troops were pouring over the western ridge, and the survivors from the canyon rim were repositioning to cut off the escape route. She made a decision that went against every rule in the tactical manual. Instead of staying at safe altitude, she dove low and leveled off just above the ridgeline, flying directly between the enemy positions and the escaping Americans. Thunder 17, what are you doing? Mitchell shouted over the radio. Giving you cover. Keep moving. Claire's A-10 roared along the ridge at 200 feet, drawing fire from every enemy position. Tracers filled the air around her like a deadly light show. She felt multiple impacts against her fuselage, heard the distinctive ping of bullets hitting metal. Her right engine fire light came on. Then her hydraulic pressure warning. The A-10 shuddered and bucked like an angry horse, but she held it steady, flying a pattern that kept the enemy focused on her instead of the men below. Thunder 17, you're on fire. Mitchell's voice was full of alarm. Claire looked over her shoulder. Black smoke was streaming from her right engine, and she could see orange flames licking around the cowling. Her backup hydraulic system kicked in, but the controls felt heavy and sluggish. I'm okay, Recon 7. How far to the gap? 20 yards. We're almost there. A new sound filled Claire's headset, the distinctive whine of a surface-to-air missile launch. She looked down and saw the white trail rising from the western ridge. Someone down there had a shoulder-fired SAM. Missile launch, she called, pulling into a tight turn and deploying chaff and flares. The missile streaked past her left wing, close enough that she could see its fins. But the evasive maneuver cost her. Her damaged aircraft stalled at the top of the turn, engines sputtering. For a terrifying moment, the A-10 fell like a stone toward the rocky canyon floor. Claire fought the controls, nursing the throttles, coaxing her wounded bird back to life. The engines caught just before she hit the canyon wall, pulling out of the dive with barely 50 feet to spare. Thunder 17, are you still with us? Mitchell's voice was tight with concern. Still here, Recon 7. Report your status. We made it through the gap. All 6 souls, but Lopez is hurt bad. We need immediate medical evacuation. Claire climbed slowly, her battered aircraft struggling with every foot of altitude. Both engines were running rough now, and she could smell smoke in the cockpit. Her fuel was down to 8 minutes, maybe less. Through her cracked canopy, she could see the reconnaissance team on the eastern slope, moving toward what looked like a small clearing where a helicopter might be able to land. But they were still 300 yards from safety, and enemy troops were already moving to intercept them. Worse, her radios were picking up enemy communications. More reinforcements were inbound, including armored vehicles. The window for extraction was closing fast. Claire looked at her instrument panel, at her father's photo tucked beside the fuel gauge. Both engines were failing, her hydraulics were shot, and she was running out of fuel over hostile territory. But 6 American soldiers were counting on her to get them home. Claire's left engine seized with a grinding sound that shook the entire aircraft. The RPM gauge dropped to 0, and suddenly she was flying on one damaged engine that was barely holding together. Thunder 17, you're trailing heavy smoke. Mitchell's voice was urgent. Can you make it back to base? Claire looked at her instruments. Fuel showed 4 minutes remaining. Her right engine was running at 60% power and dropping. The nearest friendly airfield was 20 minutes away on a good day. With one engine, it might as well be on the moon. Negative, Recon 7. I'm staying until you're extracted. Thunder 17, you need to save yourself. We'll make it. Below her, Claire could see the truth. The reconnaissance team was still 200 yards from the clearing, moving slowly because of their wounded sergeant. Enemy troops were closing in from two directions, and she could hear heavy vehicle engines in the distance. Recon 7, I've got visual on enemy armor moving up the valley road. Looks like two APCs with support troops. ETA to your position is maybe 10 minutes. Silence on the radio for a moment. Then Mitchell's voice, steady despite everything. Copy, Thunder 17. We understand. Claire banked her crippled aircraft toward the approaching armor. She had maybe 30 seconds of cannon fire left, no rockets, and an engine that sounded like it was held together with prayer and duct tape. Recon 7, I need you to listen to me. When I engage those vehicles, you move fast for the clearing. Don't look back, don't stop for anything. Get to that LZ and call for immediate extraction. Thunder 17, what about you? She looked at her fuel gauge again. 3 minutes now. Not enough to make it home, not enough to reach friendly territory. Maybe enough to buy 6 good men the time they needed. Don't worry about me, Recon 7. Just get your people home. As she lined up her attack run on the approaching armor, something came through her radio that stopped her cold. Mitchell's voice, but different now. Personal. Thunder 17, I don't know who you are, but I want you to know something. My father's told me about pilots like you. Said you were the finest people he ever served with. Said real warriors measure their worth not by the battles they win, but by the lives they save. Claire's hand tightened on the stick. The words hit her like a physical blow, because they were almost exactly what her own father had told her the night before his last deployment. Before Harrison destroyed him. My father always said that honor isn't about never falling down. It's about what you do when everything goes wrong. About standing by the people who count on you, even when it costs you everything. Tears she didn't know she'd been holding back blurred her vision. This boy, this young officer whose father had killed her father's career, was speaking words that could have come from Michael Donovan himself. Thunder 17, are you still there? Claire keyed her radio, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. I'm here, Hawk 2. And your father sounds like a wise man. She dove toward the lead APC, cannon ready. At 300 yards, she opened fire. The 30mm rounds punched through the vehicle's thin armor like it was made of paper. The APC slewed sideways and stopped, black smoke pouring from its engine compartment. The second APC opened fire with its machine gun, tracers reaching up toward her damaged aircraft. She felt more hits, heard glass breaking in her cockpit. Her good engine coughed and stumbled. Thunder 17, the armor is stopped. We're moving to the LZ now. Claire pulled up from her attack run, fighting controls that barely responded. Through her cracked canopy, she could see the reconnaissance team running across open ground toward the clearing. They were going to make it. But more enemy troops were emerging from the disabled vehicles, and infantry was still moving in from the ridges. They'd reached the clearing about the same time as Mitchell's team. Her fuel gauge showed 90 seconds. Claire looked at her father's photo one more time. She thought about honor, about duty, about the difference between revenge and justice. Her father would have made the same choice she was about to make. She keyed her radio one last time. Recon 7, there's something I need to tell you. My name is Claire Donovan. My father was Colonel Michael Donovan. Your father probably doesn't remember him, but tell him anyway. Tell him Michael Donovan's daughter says the account is settled. Before Mitchell could respond, Claire pushed her nose down into the steepest dive her dying aircraft could manage, heading straight for the enemy troops converging on the landing zone. Claire dove toward the enemy troops, her dying aircraft screaming through the thin mountain air. At 200 feet, she pulled up hard, using her last drops of fuel to fly directly over the enemy positions. The sound of her engines sent the troops diving for cover, disrupting their advance toward the clearing. Thunder 17, what are you doing? Mitchell's voice was desperate. Buying you time, Hawk 2. Keep moving. Her right engine finally quit with a shuddering cough. The A-10 became a 30,000-pound glider, losing altitude fast. Claire looked ahead and saw a narrow ridge that might give her enough room for a dead-stick landing. Thunder 17, I can see a helicopter coming in from the east. It's one of ours. Claire craned her neck and spotted the Black Hawk approaching the clearing at high speed. Mitchell's team was almost there, dragging their wounded sergeant between them. The enemy troops were regrouping, but they'd lost precious seconds when she'd buzzed their positions. Recon 7, that bird's going to be on the ground for maybe 60 seconds. Don't waste them. Copy, Thunder 17. And Claire? Mitchell's voice was steady now. Thank you. Claire lined up on the ridge, dead-sticking her approach at 120 knots with no power. The A-10 was built tough, designed to bring pilots home even when everything went wrong. She was about to test that reputation. The ground rushed up fast. At the last second, she pulled back on the stick, bleeding off speed as the main gear touched down hard on the rocky ridge. The aircraft bounced, slammed down again, and slid forward in a cloud of dust and flying rocks. The left landing gear collapsed. The A-10 slewed sideways, its wing tip digging a furrow in the stone. Claire was thrown against her harness as the aircraft finally ground to a stop, 50 yards from a cliff edge. She sat in the sudden silence, her ears ringing. Smoke drifted from her engines, but there was no fire. Through her cracked canopy, she could see the valley below where the Black Hawk was touching down in the clearing. Her radio was still working. Thunder 17, are you alive up there? Claire keyed her mic. Still breathing, Hawk 2. What's your status? All 6 souls on board the bird. We're lifting off now. Lopez is going to make it. Through her side window, Claire watched the Black Hawk climb away from the clearing, carrying the reconnaissance team to safety. The enemy troops below were already falling back, their mission failed. Thunder 17, there's a search and rescue bird spinning up to come get you. ETA 20 minutes. Claire smiled for the first time all day. Copy that. I'll be here. She looked at her father's photo, still tucked into the corner of her instrument panel. The glass was cracked, but his face was clear. He wore the same expression he'd had when she'd graduated flight school, proud and confident in her abilities. We did good today, Dad, she said quietly. Thunder 17, this is Hawk 2. Mitchell's voice came through the radio again, but different now. Thoughtful. Go ahead, Recon 7. I wanted you to know, I talked to my father about Colonel Michael Donovan. I had to look up the records, but I found what happened. The convoy incident, the court-martial, all of it. Claire felt her chest tighten. Hawk 2, you don't need to. Yes, I do. My father was a young major then, part of the investigating board. He told me the whole story just now over secure comms. Said he's carried the weight of that decision for 12 years. Said politics forced their hand, but it doesn't make it right. Claire stared out at the mountains, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Not closure exactly, but something close to it. He wants to meet with you when you get back, Major Donovan. Said he owes your father's memory an apology. And he owes you more than he can ever repay. Hawk 2, your father doesn't owe me anything. We all serve the same flag. Maybe. But he said to tell you that Colonel Michael Donovan was one of the finest officers he ever knew. Said the real disgrace was what happened to him, not anything he did. Claire felt tears on her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were something else, something that felt like healing. Tell your father I said thank you. And Hawk 2? You did good down there today. Your old man should be proud. Copy that, Major. And Claire? Your father would be proud too. In the distance, Claire could hear the sound of rotors approaching. Her rescue bird, coming to bring her home. She looked at her father's photo one more time, then carefully folded it and put it in her flight suit pocket. The account was settled. honor was restored. And somehow, after 12 years of carrying her father's shame, Major Claire Donovan finally felt free. If this story moved you the way it moved me, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible military stories.